Okay, we good to go? Yeah, so good boy. All right. Okay, Bubbas. Hopefully this works. This is my other cat. He is not usually our mascot here. Can I open this already? Excuse me, are you gonna sit down? It'll work. We'll make it. We'll give it a good old go. Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome to the Hear Her Hands Knitting podcast, where I am a knitter, crocheter, quilter, and sewist. I'm located in Baltimore, Maryland, where I live with my 2 black cats and 2 miniature schnauzers. One of my cats is here. The other one is helping under the tripod, so hopefully he doesn't make it wiggle too much. So today we're going to do a little bit more of a, not quite a year in review. What I'm going to do is review my bingo card that I set up at about this time last year, which was basically things I wanted to try. Like, I either wanted to learn a new skill, I wanted to work with a pattern designer's pattern, or I wanted to knit with a type of yarn, or basically lots of little things. So I had a full bingo card. While I do this, I will check them off and see if I ever get an actual bingo. But, so the first completed bingo on my bingo card for this year was mosaic knitting. So I wanted to learn or try mosaic knitting. And my first mosaic knitting pattern was the pressed flowers kerchief, which I'll picturing here. I did knit that in a more, in like scrap yarn. It was not particularly sustainable. It was an acrylic from a blanket square, like shipment or something. So I had this blanket knitting box that I got every month, and so I have a bunch of like white and gray that was meant to knit squares, and I never really used those patterns at all, so I kept the yarn. I used that yarn, and I had my second color was some leftover Knit Picks cotton in like a royal blue. So part of why I used these 2 yarns was white and blue, were my mother-in-law's favorite colors. And so I originally started knitting this kerchief when she was in hospice, but before she died. I did manage to finish it like right before she died, and so I sent it to Houston. I shipped it like overnight, and it got to them in time for my older sister-in-law to take it to West Texas to be buried with her. So I did knit this pressed flowers kerchief. Partially I knit it the free pattern because I wasn't sure if I would understand the mosaic knitting, or especially the pressed flowers. And to make it more of a shawl rather than a kerchief, I just kept knitting until it was like tieable shawl length, and I knit some very long ties, and they put it in her casket. So that was my first one. And my next pattern, I wanted to knit something by Katoba Kika. She was one of the first designers that I followed on YouTube, and I really like her videos. I found them really interesting. I also really enjoyed how she often had like decently detailed like visual tutorials. So my first Kotovakika pattern was the Salty Days sweater, and I knitted as part of the knit along with Haley Space and Morgan and Ravel, who were both Australian knitters at the time. I knit that one in Lion Brand LB collection, Super Wash Merino in the color Quail, which is a really pretty dusty purple color. And I knit a size small because my measurements are the same as Kika's. But yeah, my finished object, I was decently happy with it when I initially finished it. But first of all, it's been a rough year. My body has changed a little bit. It doesn't fit the way it fit when I finished it at first, and also it just doesn't fit the way the pattern photos fit Kika or the other examples, the pattern, and I was just really disappointed. I've worn it twice, and both times I wore it was for videos. I don't feel comfortable in it. I feel really self-conscious. So I don't wear it. I'm gonna hold on to it for another year, see if things change. If maybe this is just like a phase of life thing. But if not, I might just give it away. It was a really pretty sweater, and it was so much fun to learn all these different stitch patterns. It just didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. So that was unfortunate, but that is one check for Kika patterns. And then next, in maybe it was February, whenever I finished the Salty Days, I cast on. I wanted to knit something in my Neighborhood Fiber Co. yarn that I bought from them after Rhinebeck last year, 2024, maybe. It was specifically the Rhinebeck yarn that was the proceeds were mostly going to recovery after Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, in the Asheville region. So I bought 4 skeins, I think, of the stock yarn, and I bought 2 skeins of the loft, which was a mohair. And so, unfortunately, when I bought the loft, I didn't know that I couldn't wear mohair. So I have instead knit a shawl with one of those. I'm going to knit another shawl with the other one to give to a friend who also is a big supporter of North Carolina. They're originally from that area. So that was my Neighborhood Fiber Co. I knit that yarn into an Ombre Cardigan by Tiana's Fiber Arts, which I'm not sure if they're on there either, but that was another check. And my Ombre Cardigan is usually one of my 2 most worn knits. A V-neck cardigan that's very sort of drapey and cozy and simple. Stockinette is clearly a big wardrobe staple for me. So that cardigan had gotten a ton of wear. If you see pictures from the last family memorial service, I'm wearing it. I basically wore it the whole time we were in Arkansas this year, but it's very easily one of my most worn. The only time I don't wear it is dead of summer when it's too hot for Surrey lace. But in addition, I did hold my Neighborhood Fiber Co. with a strand of Surrey lace from Lang, I think, in the color Nougat, which is a very soft, dusty nougat, very light brown color. And that helped to tame down what was coming across as a McDonald's sweater for me. Very red and yellow. So it's more of a dusky fall sweater, and I absolutely adore it. Hold for sirens. Okay, I think we're done. So that was my neighborhood fiber co yarn. And then next, I really wanted to completely finish a pair of socks. So previous to that, the only full pair of socks I finished was during Sock Week with Knitty Natty 2024 maybe. So I knit 2 socks. I knit them stockinette, cuff down, and they're very cute. They're very comfy. I wear them a ton. But I wanted to finish 2 socks, 2 whole socks that went together. So for this, my goal was to knit 2 socks at the same time, which I did 2 at a time toe up. Excuse you. And I knit those in Summer Leaves Hibernal Sock pattern. I also knit them in a skein of, don't make me kick you out, no, sorry, no, a Patton's Croy sock, North American sock maybe, in the color plum, which is like very dusty purple gray. What the heck? What's going on out there? That is the 3rd time. Sheesh. Okay, so I knit a pair of Hibernal Socks by Summer Lee, and then pretty close after that, I really wanted to also, another thing on my list was I wanted to do waffle knit. So I knit a pair of waffle knit-ish socks. Those were a sort of self-drafted pattern. I knit them in the, I think it's So Happy Jane Huckleberry Sunday sock set from the Sock Week knit along with Knitty Natty of this year. And I knit those 2 at a time, toe up. I think they were a 60 stitch gauge, or no, 60 stitches around. And they turned out very cute, but the bind off was too tight, so I'm still trying to figure that out. So I did a waffle pattern. And then another one I wanted to do was I really wanted to do a couple of home goods. I had several blankets. I have a tendency to have blankets in process kind of all the time. So I had been knitting the tumbling block blanket. So a couple of years ago, I knit the tumbling blocks in a color changing like cake from Michael's for a friend for a baby shower gift, and it was like a brownie rainbow color. It was very pretty, but because there's a color changing yarn and the tumbling blocks pattern, the tumbling blocks got very like blurred. So I wanted to see what it looked like in a solid, so I immediately cast that on when I finished the other one in Lion Brand Feels Like Butter in the color Sunshine, maybe like a bright yellow. I finished that one this year, and I sent it off to a friend. And then after that, I cast on the 6-day Supernova Star Blanket. Cast on crochet. Anyway, I crocheted that blanket. It took me a month. It was 6 days about it. But I had finished that. I crocheted it in Lion Brand Big Scoop in the color Butter Pecan or Butter Pecan, depending on where you're from. And I have completed that and shipped it off to a friend in the South who I am sure will quite enjoy it. And then another home decor item that I wanted to finish or complete. I really want to have a full set of pet Christmas stockings for my household. So I have 4 pets. I have 2 schnauzers and 2 cats. So I started this pet Christmas stocking pattern. It is a free pattern. I modified it a bit to make it longer, and I used the color charts in the pattern sort of modified to kind of make the dogs look more like schnauzers than like, I think they look like Scotties, but I may be wrong. So I have finished that. That is the only stocking I finished yet this year, but I figure if I keep working on it by 4 more years, I'll have enough stockings for all the pets. And another thing I wanted to do was on my bingo was I wanted to knit something by Locateli. So originally I had her T-bow knit hat on my list of things I wanted to knit, but instead the One Love shawl make along came up, and I knitted a One Love. So this is my One Love that I knit. I have 2. The other one is a gift, but this one I knit in a frog multiple times ball of Cedar Jewel Spun in the color Northern Lights. I think it might actually be a worsted, but it is very cozy and it's very wearable. And I find it like perfect for this time of day where it's starting to cool off, but I'm not so cold that I want to put on a full sweater again yet. So I have knit this one in Northern Lights, and then I knit the other one in a ball of an ombre ball, like a fall gradient from Vibrant Knits. And that here, and it turned out very pretty. So I think someone that I'm planning on giving that to will love it. A couple more things that I have in here that are not completed, so I can't check them off, but I'm going to mention them anyway. So I have my in progress project. I want to replace the striped sweater that I have and love that is completely wearing out. I am using the La Mini Mariniere sweater pattern with an alteration to the striping in maybe an elderflower from Knitting for Olive to make a sort of copy-ish of that sweater that I had previously that I love and am wearing to death, so that I have something I can wear when that one falls apart because it's very close. I have gotten to the point where I'm probably below the bust. Like I'm definitely well beyond the split for sleeves part of it, and so I'm still working on that, and it is much easier going now that I'm not constantly like cutting my stripes. So that's been really fun. Another thing I really wanted to do was I want to use up my Advent yarn. So I have an Advent from last year that was a stash swap, and so we like put together our stash and swapped yarns within an Instagram group. And so that yarn I'm working on knitting up. What is it called? Oh, the Stitch Sampler Shawl. So I have divided my yarn up into 2 batches, and one batch is like yellow, orange, and purple, and the other batch is like blues and greens. So the yellow, orange, and purple is the Stitch Sampler, and I'm about halfway through knitting that. It is a big shawl, so I'm still working on it. The other Advent I got this year that I am working on is I got the McPurly's For God So Loved the World Advent, and I have been opening it on my Vlogmas here. You can go look at, and I have been knitting it into the Anthology row by Helen Stewart. So I am currently on day 10 I'm making progress. I'm I'm not gonna say I'm behind. I'm making progress, but I'm not making progress at the pace that the advent is going. But it's just getting, because it's a circle, just getting longer and longer rows. So I'm doing the best I can. But I do plan on finishing that this year. And I think it's going to be a wall hanging for me. But it's such a pretty project, I guess. Yeah. In addition to that, my ongoing wish for this year is to knit more socks. I really like wearing hand knitted socks, and like I don't know why, but my store bought socks wear out fast. So I have currently knit 2 pairs. And I have 2 more pairs on the needles and like a billion balls of yarn plans to knit from. But the ones currently on the needles for me are the May Cuff Club Volume 1 by Summer Lee. So that one I'm just doing the sort of whipping pattern from the Cuff Club. I don't know if I will do the cuff. I'm not that far, but I seem to be really a really tight color work fitter, and I'm afraid to make my socks too small. So I may not do the color work on the May cuff. I don't know at this point. But also those are like, I'm almost to the heel. This is kind of where I lose steam on my socks. In addition to that, I'm also currently knitting the Hibernal Sock pattern again by Summer Lee, and I'm knitting that in main character sock pair sock bundle from Rising Tide Fiber Co., who is a local-ish to me dyer, and I am really enjoying that. I initially started knitting it because it was to go along with Knitty Natty's pink October knitting thing for Kingston Party, but I kind of lost steam because I thought maybe the main character wasn't pink enough. But also, I lost steam because socks are just they're not my favorite knit. I'm very much a like garment knitter. So, and also I had like way too many projects on the needles, and I still do. I honestly can't tell you if I will ever catch up. Finally, one thing I really wanted to knit this year because it keeps being cold and I keep knitting hats that are too small for my head or too big for my head. It really depends. I have one color work floral hat that does fit and I like it, but it's really loose like at the ears, and so it doesn't really keep me very warm. That is honestly the only color work pattern I've successfully knit, and that one is this pattern is the Under the Ivy by Mishi Fraz. I do recommend that pattern if you're into knitting a color work hat because it's very cute, and I really like it. It's just my ears warm enough when it gets too cold, but I need it as a headband. So I started learning how to do Tunisian crochet from Tony Lipsy on her YouTube doing the Bliss braided ear warmer. Now I didn't double up my yarn, so I think maybe it's too thin. So I have frogged it, and I'm going to try that one again in a bit. That is my final current project that is on the bingo card. So a couple of more things I want to do. Well, no, I guess this one is too. So another one that's on the bingo card is knit the alpaca DK. So I have 2 sweater quantities of alpaca DK. One is from Wool Warehouse in black fuchsia. One is from Knit Picks in color Nora, I think. And it's like a purple brown dusty color. I really want to knit up that Nora, but I'm not sure what in. The Wool Warehouse one, or Alpaca Warehouse, I don't know. Yeah, so the one I'm currently working on is a test knit for the Caribea. It is a stockinette project, like a zipper thing. Um, and it's working out really cute. I just can't knit it once it gets dark 'cause I can't see what I'm doing. So it's going a little slower than I'd like. 'Cause honestly, I would only knit on that if I could. Every time I try after it gets dark, I mess up. So I need to be better at like cutting that off when it gets dark. So yeah, I have a whole lot of bingo going on here, and I would love to hear about any of your projects that you made this year that were on your list of goals to make, like actually completed or are still working on. You have anything in particular? Do you have anything in particular that you would recommend I knit as we go into this new year? I am. I have a list of things I'm planning on working on, but I think I'm gonna do another whole video specifically on those and talk about my plans for next year. But you can see I have a maybe you can see I have a pile of yarn here. Yeah, I've had a very productive year, and I think also when I go over my plans for next year, I won't talk about my stats. But here's my bingo card. Did I get a bingo? Did you get a bingo? Would love to hear from you. And also, if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, I would be so honored if you would consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps to get me out into the interwebs and broaden my reach a little bit. I am really enjoying being a knitter on YouTube, and I'm enjoying everything I've learned this year. Uh, my goal, my ongoing goal, is to build community, and I feel like here is one of the best places I can do so. So if you're part of my community, feel free to comment down below. Tell me, hi, where are you from? What are you currently knitting on? And how did you get here? How did you get into knitting? I would just love to hear from you. And until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.